Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to everyone at home that is watching online to our first meeting with our new council. I would like to ask for approval of the agenda, please. Councillor Schreier.
So moved.
May I have a seconder? Councillor Olson. Moved by Councillor Schreier, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried, 7-0. Thank you. I would like to begin this evening by honoring the memory of the 215 children whose remains were discovered at the former residential school in Kamloops, British Columbia. Flags in front of our municipal buildings and facilities in Quispamsis have remained at half-mast since this horrific discovery. I would ask that you rise and join together in a moment of silence in recognition of this horrific tragedy. Thank you. Please be seated. I'm very happy to announce that Canada Day festivities will be returning and moving forward here in Quispamsis this year. To ensure that all pandemic protocols are met, we will be hosting 3 separate one-hour events between 11 and 3 p.m. outside our building here at the Arts and Culture Centre. There is no fee to attend. However, due to contact tracing, people will need to pre-register through Eventbrite. More specific information will be on our social media channels soon. As we emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic, I want all citizens to know that this council, management team, and staff are committed to an effective rebound and working with all neighboring municipalities on any joint initiatives directed towards regional recovery from the pandemic. At this council, we are ready, willing, and able for future growth. We are on the launch pad, and it's time to take off. I now ask for a moment of silence. I will breathe a moment of silence. We would like to take a moment to pause and remind ourselves of the important work we have here before us tonight. May we make good decisions without prejudice or bias, and always in the best interest of our community, which we are here to serve. Disclosure of interest. Are there any disclosure of interests? Seeing there are none, We will move on to presentations. Our first presentation is with Wayne Arrowsmith, a presentation on Quispamsis active transportation, request for an update. Mr. Arrowsmith, please come to the podium. Welcome. Would you please give your name and address for the clerk?
This.
Okay.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you about active transportation. I'm an experienced cyclist and frequent cyclist, but I also walk on the town streets and trails quite a bit, so that's the viewpoint that I'm presenting to you tonight. I want to start off with 2 slides reminding everyone what is active transportation and what are the benefits. These slides are taken from a Government of Canada webpage. And you know, active transportation ties in directly with the vision statement for Quispamsis. And I want to read that. Quispamsis is a forward-thinking community where families enjoy a safe, friendly, and active lifestyle surrounded by a beautiful natural environment. So I think what that is telling us is that we enjoy active transportation in this community. And especially during this time, it's so important because, particularly in the last year and a half, it's just not our physical health that active transportation benefits, but also our mental health that it benefits. And I think we'll all, I notice when I'm out walking or I'm out cycling, there are a lot more people out these days walking, cycling, enjoying our beautiful trails. So it's no question, it's very important. So, next slide. Do I change that or does someone? Okay. So how do we design a community to support active transportation? I think the Government of Canada, the key word there is connectivity. I've lived in Quispamsis about 40 years and enjoy the many walking trails, lanes, parks that the town has developed. Yet, in my opinion, our town is still lacking AT infrastructure, which provides connectivity from residential areas to destinations, and destinations being restaurants, the gym, the library, any of the commercial businesses along Hampton Road or the other commercial areas. And what do I mean by infrastructure? I mean bike lanes on our arterial and connector streets, paved shoulders on others. Next slide, please. So what I did, I went back and I pulled out the Quispamsis Active Transportation Plan from 2011, and I'm not going to focus on the many accomplishments of the 2011 plan, and there are many, but rather the items that remain unfinished. And my question is it time to dust off that plan and ask what we can do to finish it, or perhaps plan alternative options? And I'm zeroed in on 3 specific items. The Hampton Road, which is listed as our arterial street, sort of like the spine of any active transportation network. And the plan said it will be redeveloped in coming years, and as increase in cycling demand, we would have 1.5 meter bike lanes on each side of the road. The other 2 items, those collector streets, Vincent, Pettingill, Quispamsis, Means Cove, it said, as and if cycling demand increases, we would have sidewalks and bike lanes on those streets. And I have to, I was talking to a friend a while back, and we were talking about active transportation in the city of St. John, and he said, and the lack of cyclists on the streets, and he said, have you ever seen canoes paddling down any of the streets in St. John? And I said, well, no, of course not, there's no water. And he said the same applies to cycling infrastructure. Unless you have proper cycling infrastructure, you are not going to have cyclists because it means safety. So that last item on that Quispamsis active transportation plan, 2.5 meter wide asphalt trails on Millennium, Gondola Point, Model Farm. That, you know, that is an expensive item, I realize, but if we're not going to do that, then maybe it's time to go back and look at the plan and say, what can we do? I'm watching the clock there. The town has new apartment buildings, new residential areas, new commercial areas, and the plan should be updated to reflect that growth. Next slide, please. So the next item I looked at was the Quispamsis presentation on climate change actions. It is a great plan. I read through it, and I have to commend the town. They completed a lot of the items in that, but I pulled out the 3 items that I thought refer to active transportation. And that first one, whenever I was going through this and reading it and make sure I knew what I was going to say, I said, I got to read that. It is just a wow statement. As major roadways are upgraded, road shoulders are widened to create safer pathways for cyclists and pedestrians. My question is, what is a major roadway? And are we actually following these actions? I'm not so sure that we are, especially with the widening of streets or major roadways, whatever roadway that is referring to in the town. Next slide, please. So I drove around, I took a few pictures. First one is Millennium Drive. Millennium was in existence 10 years ago, and it called for one of those trails alongside it, 2.5 meters wide, separate from the road by 1.5 meters. And 10 years ago, we didn't have 2 large, I don't know how many units are in them, probably 50, 60, 70 apartment buildings on that street. And I've cycled along there, but most people wouldn't. Those people in those apartment buildings, those people who have established commercial businesses in those areas do not have access to active transportation. And again, going back to what I said earlier, if we're not going to put that trail there, maybe it's time to go back and look and see what we can do. Paved shoulders, bike lanes, something. Now the second picture is from the Model Farm Road. It's taken right near the Means Cove Park, and it looks like it's been recently paved. I don't know whether it's in the last 2 or 3 months or the last year or 2, but instead of putting paved shoulders there, we have crushed rock, and it is big enough crushed rock that a bicycle couldn't walk along it, and I don't think it would be all that comfortable for walking on either. Going back to that climate change action plan, as major roadways are upgraded, road shoulders are widened to create safer pathways for cyclists and pedestrians. I don't think we accomplished that with that, the way, and I also note that we're repaving Model Farm Road right now, and I wonder, what are we putting paved shoulders there? So last picture, Hampton Road near the library. I have to ask, if you're a parent, do you want your child, and you're living in, say, Cedar Ridge somewhere, do you want your child who's going to the library, or maybe they're going down to Dairy Queen, do you want them on a bicycle on this road? I don't think so. If you're an adult and you want to go to the gym, or you want to go out for the evening with your spouse and you want to go to a restaurant, are you going to cycle on this road? If you're not experienced, and even then, I question whether you would do it. So the Hampton Road, again, is listed as the AT arterial street, sort of the spine. It's 10 years old, and I don't think that's anything more than a label. It is not safe to cycle on for most people. So these are just 3 examples of many in the town where our efforts to provide safe, active transportation are lacking and preventing our town from fully embracing active transportation. Sorry? Okay, why do we need an updated active transportation plan. The reasons are listed there. Our 10-year-old plan does not recognize the growth. I want to make a point that we have an abundance of sharrows. They are not the same as bike lanes. They are not safe as bike lanes. And finally, proposed action. These are my proposed actions, and if we are fully to embrace active transportation, then we need an updated plan. We need that connectivity which allows citizens, whether they have lived here for decades or are living in a new apartment building, to have safe access to an active transportation network, providing the ability to travel to parks, libraries, grocery stores, restaurants, and other destinations within our beautiful town using AT. Ooh. Thank you for your time and listening to my presentation.
Mr. Arrowsmith, thank you very much. Before I open up questions here with council, I think I will direct the first to our Director of Community Services and perhaps to our Director of Engineering when she's finished. So thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't want to steal the Director of Engineering Works thunder this evening, but there is an awarding of an RFP for transportation plan this evening, and active transportation is part of that. So your presentation, Mr. Arrowsmith, is very timely, and we always appreciate it when residents come to present to council in support of our initiatives. So that's wonderful timing on your part, and we appreciate the time you put into your presentation and, again, supporting our initiatives. I'd just like to give council a little bit of background perhaps to the new councillors. And 10 years ago, we created our very first active transportation in the town. And we knew at that time it was going to involve a major cultural shift similar to recycling, and that we were needing to change the culture in our community, and that our young people would be the people to help move that forward. So we hired an active transportation summer student. One of their main duties was to go into the schools and make presentations at the elementary, middle, and high school levels, as well as create activities and events, and such as attend Canada Days, movies and music in the park, and what have you, to create an awareness about active transportation and what it was and what it means. Obviously, as Mr. Arrowsmith mentioned, it's all human forms of transportation over motorized. So we wanted to make the healthy choice the easy choice. And I think, no pun intended, we made great strides in doing that. We've probably reached 1,000 people, children in particular, every summer for the past 8 years, up until COVID hit. As I mentioned, they attended a number of events, and the children went home and then educated their parents on what active transportation was, and then what those signs were on the road and what the sharrows were. So again, I feel that we've made great strides in the last 8 years. And the plan is out of date. It's 10 years old now, and thankfully is being included in one overall master transportation plan, which I think will be of benefit to the community. There are plans for consultations with the communities throughout that process, which the Director of Engineering Works can elaborate on as well. I would say from our perspective, from the Community Services Department, we've added 9 kilometers of trail within that past 10 years. We've made important connectivity at Quispamsis Elementary School, Quispamsis Middle School. Of course, we built the QR Trail, which is the Quispamsis Rosse Trail. It's our busiest trail. It had 56,000 people on that trail last year, and that has important connectivity with the École de Pionnier, with the town of Rosse, etc. It's very busy. We also have several new pieces of trails that we're working on, and they will be connecting the mountain bike park, which will have a trail that connects Hammond River Park through to Model Farm Road, and again is a bigger piece of an active transportation network out there. We have the QR Trail to Montana, which will connect that subdivision to the QR Trail. We have the Pettingill Road with the connection to the Rosse Retention Pond Trail through their plan for this year, as well as Means Cove Park to Forester's Cove. So we've had a lot of effort put into safe access. In particular, partnerships with the schools, as I mentioned, with Quispam Elementary and Quispamsis Middle School. So we, again, making the healthier choice, the easier choice. So instead of parents getting in their car and driving around, we've made connections to the nearby subdivisions. And the schools have committed to the snow removal of those trails, so that can be done all year round. We do have an existing AT committee that has met monthly since the development of the AT plan. It involves the planning officer who is here this evening, involves engineering, it involves parks and facilities and community services. And as I mentioned, we meet on a regular basis and we look at opportunities to create the connectivity within our community as development happens, and working with developers to acquire certain sections of land that would be helpful, again, to create that safe passage. So I think if you'll notice, the Qplex has a lot of traffic around that trail network as well, but it's not just, in our opinion, key nodes. Key nodes is critical, so we have key node trails to the Qplex, but we also want to make it safe passage for the children to go play down the road with their neighbors. So, you know, perhaps mom or dad wouldn't want them necessarily on the road, but they'll send them via trail. So we're trying to make all those pieces connect. And again, I think we've made great strides over the last 10 years. So I just wanted to, again, give you some context around what we have done, and perhaps the director of engineering can work to say what we're going to do moving forward, but with the master transportation plan. But that's where we've been, and we're going to continue to do more work, as I mentioned, the projects that we have on the slate for this year.
Thank you, Director. Director of Engineering, would you like to compliment what the Director of Community Services has said? Thank you.
I'll just touch on the street capital component. As Director of Community Services mentioned, there is a award of a tender later on this evening for consulting services for our master transportation plan. And that does include active transportation as one component of the review. It also includes different things, policy reviews such as traffic calming, things of that nature, and that'll be expanded upon at the time of award later this evening. But as far as the street capital, and Mr. Aerosmith brought up a couple of pictures, and one of particular was the Model Farm Road, was the road shoulder he was questioning. And if you looked in the same picture, there's actually a painted line on the other side of that particular photo that he brought forward, which was widened to accommodate a walking lane on that particular. So we have a standard now that all major roads are incorporated with the widening, not just of our pavement width, but also of the shoulder width. So if you look at some of the streets that existed prior to that, there was a narrower asphalt width and essentially no shoulder to speak of. And the shoulders themselves are there as much a safety component, somebody to pull off, and recognizing the fact they are not intended to be bicycle lanes. Bicycles, again, have rules of the road that they would follow, and you know, although sharrows are not the ultimate safe passage for bicycles, they are an integral component in bike AT use. But as far as our street capital program, we are widening road shoulders on major road collectors, a meter extra on one side of the road that's painted and separated. If you look at streets like the French Village, there's actually a rumble strip that's dividing that area. So where we can, and as clearly stated in the AT plan and our own processes, is where the budget permits, we are incorporating those where we can. So it is a step that we are taking when it comes to AT work. The master transportation plan we envision will help us to take it to the next level. Ultimately, council is the decision-making body, and if council says we don't want to see one lane, we want to see 2 paved lanes, then we will revise our budgets and our asset management plan accordingly. To date, we've been successful in getting a substantial balance of budget allocated with street widening, and it's been under the direction of council. So we envision this master transportation plan as resetting the stage for us, as you would, having council decide what do we want to see from a level of service. It is going to involve public process. There will be public consultation in the development of the master transportation plan. So we'll also get to see what the public wants to see and what they feel as priorities. So we think it's, as Director of Community Services has mentioned, it's a timely presentation because it validates and reinforces the need for updated master planning in a municipality on a regular basis. And this is one component that will be undertaken as we awarded the RFP this evening.
Thank you very much, Director of Engineering. Now I'm going to open it up for any councillors that would like to comment. Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. So thank you, Mr. Arrowsmith, for the informative presentation on such an important topic. You bring up some interesting points regarding the active transportation plan, and knowing you were coming tonight, I did read the plan developed 10 years ago. And I first want to send kudos out to the town staff for such a fantastic execution on the active transportation trail infrastructure part of this plan. It has been such an important support to many of us during COVID, and it really helps us live the vision of our town. However, I too was a bit surprised at the execution of the cycling and road infrastructure portion of the plan that was proposed 10 years ago, and I heard this many times during campaigning. The plan actually states the key recommendations for active transportation should be, in quote, considered in unison and not as a pick and choose element. I do have to share my concerns where when we're based on the Motor Vehicle Act, as a cyclist, you have to bike with traffic. So by putting a lane only on one side of the street, I always say either you can get to Quispamsis but never leave, or vice versa, because there's not a bike lane to get back home. So it does create a huge safety concern, because if we put them there thinking they're walking lanes, cyclists and motorists think they're bike lanes. So I think there is a bit of a safety concern there. So it does appear that, that plan was kind of adjusted, even though, within the plan it said really it's not really supposed to be a pick and choose. So in light of this, Your Worship, I would like to propose a motion that we establish an active transportation working group made up of community users and experts to work collaboratively and provide oversight in this area with the organization. And I know we're talking about this later, but they are engineers. I'd really like to make sure that we have oversight on this with people that are actively using our active transportation infrastructure to help the organization that we hired to help develop our master transportation plan. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask a question to the Director of Community Services. Do we have a committee already established in that light? Oh, sorry. It just does not want, I have to turn yours off, Mary.
We have an active transportation committee that's existed for the past 10 years since the plan was adopted by council, as I mentioned previously. So that has the various departments on that. That sounds like it's different than what Councillor Luck is proposing, but I believe that there is public consultation processes throughout the master transportation plan that's already included as part of that RFP. So there's going to, I don't know if you need a working group, but there is public consultation throughout that process. So it is there.
Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. Respectfully, I think that, looking at, if we do have an active transportation plan, they've done a great job on the trails, but unfortunately, looking at the infrastructure, if they've been giving guidance over the last 10 years, I think we've failed in that regard. And I think it's important that if we are moving forward with a master transportation plan, it's not just informed by internal staff, but we have users in our community that actually have expertise and lived experience on this issue, helping to inform that plan, so we don't get, don't in 10 years look back and we're still in the same spot. Because I think that, our town is growing, and it's really important that the people that are moving here, that are expecting these services and expecting this quality of life that we're promising within our vision, aren't disappointed, because right now, unfortunately, we can't safely cycle and support active transportation. And I think, especially in New Brunswick, where we have huge rates of chronic disease, obesity, diabetes, and again, even mental health, there's so many benefits, as Mr. Arrowsmith pointed out in his initial slide, in terms of economic benefit, health benefits. I think that it's important, if we're living our vision of a town, to actually, have a bit more oversight, because in the last 10 years, I think we've done a fabulous job on trails, but I think that now is the time that we really relook at the cycling infrastructure in our town.
Thank you. We have a motion on the table. May I have a seconder, please?
Oh, do you want me to read it again? Sure. The motion I propose is that we establish an active transportation working group made up of community users and experts to work collaboratively and provide oversight in this area with the organization hired to help us develop our master transportation plan.
Okay, thank you. If everyone's heard that, may I have a seconder on that motion?
I'll second it.
I think
I second that motion.
Councillor Donovan, moved by Councillor Locke, seconded by Councillor Donovan. On the question, Councillor Schreier, Deputy Mayor Schreier. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
thank you. On the question, so I just want to make sure I have this straight. There's an RFP going out of which the Director of Engineer has indicated there will be consultation with the community as is part of the RFP, or who am I looking at? Or either one, I said engineering, right? So either one can answer the question. It could give me the details of the RFP as to how much community involvement is going to be in the RFP before I. Yeah, but we have a motion on the floor, and that's why I want to know now, because I want to vote on the motion. I want to know what's in the RFP in order to vote on the motion that's in front of us now.
Your worship, the request for proposals that's going to be awarded this evening is for a consulting engineering firm to develop a master transportation plan. Now, the Part A component of it is they're going to take a look at the existing infrastructure, the existing policies, programs, such as their traffic calming policy, the AT program. Look at the deficiencies, look at the successes, look at the trends in the industry. And then they're going to be making, seeking public input as to what do the residents want to see. They'll be seeking council input as to what does council want to see. Preparing a Part A, which is a background document to say, these are the items, here's our recommendations that you should address, and then the subsequent is a Part B, which is actually developing the full policies, plans, things of that nature that council can then implement as part of the program. There are public consultation processes throughout both Part A and Part B, where they'll be seeking that input from residents and industry, things of that nature. Ultimately, the town is the owner of this particular document, so with the term that I heard, oversight, ultimately oversight belongs to council. It doesn't belong to a committee of council, and then that should be direction given to the consultants from council. Consultants would be seeking input and advice and taking what they hear back to us as the purchasers of this particular document. So the process is there, it's built into the process for that public consultation. If there's a desire to have a separate bicycle lane committee, ultimately that's council's decision. But it really shouldn't be driving our master transportation plan. This is a separate document and it has its own intents and purposes.
And next in queue, Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just on the question, I guess, to Councillor Luck, are you looking for something separate to what's currently happening or something in conjunction with or adding community members to that? I'm just trying to understand the group that's working now. Do we have any community members on it or is it mostly internal? Is it...
It's internal. We have sensitive land issues, so there's confidentiality involved. So, for example, the planning officer would be bringing to us potential development, and then we would discuss the connectivity, and so there's private information within that group.
Councillor Olson on the question. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you finished? No. Oh.
Thank
There
you,
you go.
Your Worship. So I guess it's a double question. So that was over to Councillor Luck as well. Are you looking for like an independent group that just meets and then comes to the Director of Community Service and council later to see here's what they think? Because we're going to go through different processes, but again, if you have individual user groups, it's no different than when we had some issues going on with pets and that. We actually had a committee made up that had a different experts. I mean, right now we're talking specifically on cycling, and I have another comment later to thank you for your presentation, but for later after this I'm just trying to figure out exactly what you're looking for. Is it kind of a cyclist group right here that just wants to come and say, here's what we think, knowing that, but again, we're all going to be discussing this also, have their views, but then it comes up to discussion because at the end, budget is always part of our life. So that's what you kind of look like, a community group, and who would design this community group? Like who would put it together? That's off to Councillor Luck, I guess.
Okay, so Councillor Olson had something to say, and then we'll allow you to reply, Councillor Luck.
I'm just thinking, Your Worship, whether this is a duplication of action that's already in place, as our Director of Community Services has alluded to, that we may have to dust off the plan or something like that. But I know that Council has gone through various phases of evaluating, road construction and shoulders and bicycle paths and all of that. And along with all of that too, we could easily strike an interested community group to talk about sidewalks in our community, because it's all money. And so I'm not exactly sure just what we are trying to achieve here, because I know that our Director of Community Services and our Director of Engineering are very familiar with the limitations that we're existing in and what has to be done to improve it. And I think a lot of it has to do with money. So, and a lot of major work that would have to be done. Trail system, I know we've invested a lot of money into trails, even traffic activated signage for crossing our roads. And it's been well achieved, but there are limitations to what we can do with road transportation for individuals, biking and that.
Thank you, and I think it's important to note that any committee that is struck outside of council is simply a committee that can make recommendations or ask questions, but certainly it comes down to this council and to the Director of Engineering and Director of Community Services as to how we move forward. So Councillor Luck, I'll let you have the last say on this.
Thank you, Your Worship. So respectfully to Councillor Olson's comments, I think that's the challenge, is that, I realize it comes down to money, but we did have a really well done plan 10 years ago. And even though it basically said kind of take it as is, don't pick and choose, it appears that we kind of did pick and choose. So right now, if we have an active transportation plan, but it doesn't actually include the people that are actually using active transportation, I think we're missing something. And I worry that, again, usually past behaviors dictate future behaviors. So we have 10 years of a plan that actually hasn't been executed. So I'm just looking for some type of accountability and governance to, I guess, make the community feel better that if we're going to be doing this again, because I don't want to reinvent the wheel, the plan is there. Perhaps it's dusting it off and relooking at it with users to see, because I think right now, for example, widening a road and putting an extra wide walking trail on one side, again, maybe if there was more community involvement in those decisions, it would be still widening the road and changing where the lines are. So there's two smaller bike lanes versus one big walking lane. That actually creates a safety issue, because then if you're biking in it, motorists are, well, if people are walking in it, you can't bike in it, but motorists think, well, why aren't they biking in it and why are they on the road? Like, it creates a lot of tension. So I think that having that feedback from cyclists and users of our town infrastructure is critical moving forward. And I guess I'm just looking for some type of governance so that we don't forget the end user and always be looking at, well, is it going to cost us more? Because again, a lot of these things, like right now, if we're paving, how much more would it cost to make the shoulder an extra meter wide so that we can, in the long run, so I'm not saying doing it tomorrow, but over the next 20 years, have infrastructure where people can safely cycle instead of using our cars, especially when we've highlighted the importance of that in our carbon footprint plan as well. So.
Thank you very much. On the question, please vote now. The motion was carried 4-3. Thank you. Item 6, public hearings. There are none. Moving on to item 7, minutes of previous meeting. May 18th, 2020, regular meeting. Could we have a motion, please? Councillor Thompson.
Mr. Worship, I move that the minutes for May 18th be approved as prepared.
Thank you. May I have a seconder? Councillor Miller. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Miller. Please vote now. On the question, please. Anyone on the question? Thank you. Please vote now. Motion carried, 7-0. Unfinished business. Item 8A, September 1st, 2020. Oh, I'm sorry. Item 7B, June 7th, 2020, special meeting swearing in ceremony of the 7th session of the Amalgamated Quispamsis Council. I have a motion, please. Councillor Miller.
Your Worship, I move the June 7th, 2021 special meeting minutes be approved as prepared.
Moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor Bigger. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried, 7-0. Now we'll go to unfinished business. September 1st, 2020, dangers and unsightly premises, 106 Parkside Drive, correspondence from Councillor Mike Bigger, a request for update. Councillor Bigger, did you want to address that, or will we go directly to the Director of Engineering?
I believe that because there's a history with this situation that it seems from what I read over the weekend it's well in hand, but I welcome any additional comments that Director Lozier has to offer.
Thank you. Director of Engineering.
Your Worship, again, the timeliness of the request is insightful in that this is an action that was before us, and it was an item that was going to be brought forward to council. Just as a little bit of a process, the town staff, when we receive unsightly premises complaints, we actually have a ranking score that we will go through and identify the different stages of compliance This particular property was identified at the higher ranking, so that it needed the most immediate attention. So ultimately, in the future, if there are specific unsightly premises complaints that come forward to council, we will be able to give council an indication of where they fall in that particular process. But the ultimate step is what is before council this evening, getting a solicitor to proceed with a notice to comply. And then once the property is actually posted publicly, then we have the opportunity to undertake work at our discretion once the owner has an opportunity to make an appeal. If that appeal process is not met, then we can take it to the next step. But this is that next required legislative step in the process, and it's the motion is as suggested, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Bigger.
Yeah, just wanted to add again, I'm very appreciative of any effort made to create a scoring mechanism like that. I think that's an objective kind of measurement like that is really useful, because unsightly can be such a subjective term. And in the case of this particular property in question, it clearly gets into sort of the health and safety of, you know, the owner and adjacent properties and perhaps children in the neighborhood and so on. So I would certainly welcome that. I think that's great. Thank you.
Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move the staff meet with the town solicitor with instructions to proceed with issuing a notice to comply against the property of 106 Parkside Road in accordance with the provisions of bylaw number 39, a bylaw respecting dangerous or unsightly premises, and further that prior to enforcement, council review and approve any budgetary implications.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. Moved by Councillor Olson and seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried, 7-0. Item 8B, December 15th, 2020, COMEX Public Transit System, request to cancel Route 53 and increase stops to Route 52. Councillor Miller's request for update. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, just looking kind of for an update. We got 4 new councillors, but prior to this, we had discussions on the COMEX. We actually also been counting the amount of people getting on as well for the last 3 to 4 years. We've been closely monitoring it. And also the pandemic also has changed things significantly. We looked at an alternative, unlike Hampton and some other areas that actually canceled the whole COMEX. We looked at an alternative to actually increase the run slightly, but also not give up some of our stops. And we had given that suggestion, so we'd actually remove the Quispam only bus. Sometimes we're getting between 2 to 4 people on sometimes, and adding those routes onto the shared route with Rosse, so we could actually have more times and go down through the Rosse and also share the cost with Rosse too. So I was wondering if there's been any update on where we're at with that. I believe we may have one, so.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. I'm going to turn this to Aaron, our Director of Communications, please, our Communications Manager.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and Councillor Miller's request for an update is timely, as we are working in tandem with our partners in Rosse and with St. John Transit to implement some changes that will be effective Monday, July 5th, so that's the Monday after the holiday weekend. Specifically, as Councillor Miller had alluded to, Run 53, which is known as the Quispamsis run, is going to basically be replaced with some additional stops being added to Run 52, which is the KV COMEX. So most notably is that the stops along the Vincent Road will be replaced by one stop along the Vincent Road, which will be at the Qplex, which is technically on Randy Jones Way. So we're hoping that the folks who take the 53 bus will be able to make their way to the Qplex. In terms of times, it's basically about a 10-minute change, 10 minutes earlier for folks to get on at the Qplex and arriving in St. John basically around the same time. The St. John transit schedule is down to the minute, just like airlines are, but in general terms, they'd be getting into St. John around the same time. And Councillor Miller alluded to the counting that we've done over the years, and we've done a number of initiatives to try and promote the COMEX runs. And Your Worship, you've been on the bus in the morning and talking to folks who take it and how important it is for them. So I think Council's directive has been to ensure that we still provide that service, but trying to do it in the most efficient and effective way. So we're hoping that this will help accomplish that. When we were looking at the numbers, it appeared that the majority of riders from Quispamsis wanted to be in St. John before 8 o'clock, and this new schedule will allow that to happen just without inundating you with a lot of different numbers. But basically, the two runs will arrive in King Square in the morning at 7:40, 20 to 8, and then at 8:50, 10 to 9. So we're hoping that those times will work for folks. Without question, the folks who live off of the Vincent Road that are going to have to find their way to the Qplex are impacted, and the other group that would be impacted probably to the greatest extent are folks who get on at Parkside Road. They have been accustomed to being the last on and the first off at the end of the day, and now it's the opposite, that they're going to be first on and last off. So their trip will be a little bit longer in terms of their total commute time. But again, Your Worship, this certainly is not cast in stone. We're interested in hearing the feedback from our riders and the users, and we're hoping that this works. And if we get a lot of feedback saying that doesn't work for me, I can't get to work on time, and the numbers suggest that more changes will be made, we're certainly open to do that. But we've been discussing this at great length with Ross and with St. John Transit, and July 5th is the date that the changes will be implemented. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Could we have a motion on that, and then I'll go to the question, please? Councillor Donovan.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Would you like to make the motion first, please? It's on your docket there.
Certainly. The motion I would make is that Mr. Kennedy be thanked for his update acknowledging the town's requested changes to the KV routes 52 and 53 are in the process of being implemented by St. John Transit, and Councillor Miller's correspondence be received and filed.
And that would be seconded by Councillor Miller on the question. Now I'll take any questions or comments regarding the COMEX. Councillor Donovan.
My question, Your Worship, is through you to the Director of Communications, and it is just a question. So is route 52 or 53, whatever one is being replaced, is it going to include the Parkside Drive location? Because I know I've taken that bus personally, and I know it's usually quite busy, or at least it's been busy when I'm on it. So I just wasn't sure if they were phasing that area out or not, because like I said, I've noticed it's quite busy. So I was just curious on that.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Councillor Donovan. Parkside Road is certainly still included in the new route. So basically, it will, as I mentioned, the Parkside Road folks are going to be the first ones on now. They're used to being the last ones on, and then they would head right into St. John. Now the route is going to start at Parkside Road, go to the Qplex, come back from the Qplex, turn right onto Hampton Road, and then make its way through the various stops in Quispamsis, which is the Kennebecasis Baptist Church, here at the Arts and Culture Park Town Hall, and then Lila Court, and then make its way through Rossay, stopping its last stop in K Park, and then continuing on to St. John.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Schreier.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just wondering what the drop in ridership has been since COVID, and what we project, or do we have some projections on how that ridership will gradually start to increase to give more people the opportunity to take the bus into St. John? Do we know those numbers?
Are you directing that to anyone specifically?
No.
Councillor
No.
Miller, do you have
No.
any information?
Oh, he must know the answer.
There you go.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Schreier. I'm on the comics committee, so I can answer some of that. So, and this is, I would say, a temporary. We don't know what the after pandemic will look like either, right? So, are people going to be working from home more? We looked at all different options. Thank you to the Director of Engineering and his team, like with geotech. Like we did a kind of our own studies as well, and of course, St. John Transit owns the route, so we went to them first. It's open to change. I mean, we used to have one route, we went to two. We changed some of the routing a few years ago based on ridership and data that we had. We've done many different things trying to promote. What none of us know right now is what's it going to look like when the pandemic is over, hopefully soon, for those of us that got our second shots that are old enough, that it'll be sooner. But we don't really know. And we didn't want to go as drastic as some of the other communities we've seen that actually stopped the buses altogether. So, and this way too, with the relationship with Rossi, it worked out pretty good. And yes, again, as Councillor Donovan was speaking and Mr. Kennedy was, the ones on Parkside, they had it best at first because they would be picked up last. You'd go straight into the town, and coming back, you're dropped off first. So it's a bit of a change, but it's to try to accommodate everybody. But you know, for CO2 gas emissions, for everything else, carbon footprint, it's still one of the best things to do. I'd love to be able to add more routes and more timing, but again, some of it, and I think Mr. Kennedy, Director or Manager of Communications, illustrated some of the routes you're looking at didn't get there till after 9. So they changed all the routes that you're there before 9, you're there before 8. And again, with more feedback, we can work the routes, but it's also a timing thing. And I think by doing this, I think we actually have one extra route a day for a couple of those pickups versus the 2 buses. So what's it going to be? We don't know, but St. John's been really good at giving us the data because they count how many people get on the buses, not every day, but every week. So we have data for months that says, here's who gets picked up, and how many on Parkside on this hour, how much on the next stop, who was on it when it was coming back, which ones were full. We actually added an extra bus coming back last year because we had more people coming out at different times than people going in. So I guess they're getting a drive with somebody, I'm not sure, but we do have all that data, and it'll come back to council in the fall as well once we start getting data that if we want to change things or work with Rossi or go back to having our own route. So the answer we don't know, and I'm sorry for the long-winded, but it's a bit of explanation that we have been looking at this, my goodness, for 4 or 5 years. I've got a folder on COMEX, so we know exactly, there's only one person every day being picked up down by K Park. But you can't go up the Fox Farm Road because it's too steep, so you got to keep driving straight, right? So we've asked many questions to try to make it quicker so they can do quicker turnarounds. So thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried, 7-0. Item 8C, May 18th, 2021. Department of Transportation and Infrastructure Provincially Designed Highways Program 2022 through to 2026. And there is a staff report on that. There's a motion here. If somebody would like to move that, we can have the discussion on it. Deputy Mayor Schreier, please read.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll put through the motion. Fourth, the motion, Quispamsis submit the proposed priority list for Quispamsis 5-year designated highways program 2022 to 2026, identifying the resurfacing of the Palmer Brook Road as the town's priority for 2022. It is further recommended that the designated highway program for future years be referred to the staff to incorporate future infrastructure planning such as water mains along the Hampton Road so that the town may be able to make a cost share proposal to DTI if I don't have the rest of it,
Oh,
if appropriate,
If appropriate,
if appropriate.
at some time in the future.
Okay, thank you.
And that was
Oh, there it
seconded.
is. Thank you.
That was seconded by Councillor Thompson. Moved by Councillor Schreier, seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question. Seeing there, Councillor Miller?
It's kind of a bit of a comment, but it goes back to the active transportation. If you look in 2024, part of the Hampton Road, so for those that aren't aware, the Hampton Road is actually a provincial highway. So we have to work with them, but in there as well, you can see that there's street widening, so it's a pretty big job to widen that, but it is in there, street widening if you look at 2024, so thanks.
Next in queue, Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is, I guess, directed to the Director of Transportation? I don't know. I'm not sure it works. I'll choose which one. I'm sorry, I can't see it. Engineering, sorry. So you mentioned in your summary report that Gondola Point Road arterial, so Route 119, might be considered for an option if DTI looks for alternative projects. And I did notice in the active transportation plan from 2011, this particular road was labeled as a regional arterial street. And these were proposed to have a bike lane or at least a paved shoulder similar to Hampton Road in their Appendix D. So due to the speeds on this main throughway, I'm wondering if this could be considered for future planning and priority. So it's just more of a comment that it might be something, especially with the speeds.
Your Worship, the Gondola Point Arterial, Route 119, is bypass highway. So it's a lower class than, say, the Route 1, the Trans-Canada. So the town actually has no jurisdiction on the route, on the Gondola Point Arterial. And any upgrades to that for such things as a bike lane would come directly out of the DTI. In the past, and some of the existing council members would recall, we actually identified intersections that we wanted to see a turning lane, and the only way that the province would do it was through a cost share program. If they didn't see it as a warranted item, they wouldn't even entertain a cost share. So the reason that the arterial has been identified in the summary report basically is it gives the province the opportunity, what would happen in the past, they didn't have the $400,000 that the town wanted to see a road paved, but they said, listen, we've got $70,000 if you want to do that lane, if you want to match it. So it's always it's a case of leaving the door open for DTI, essentially. That's that part of the recommendation. So unfortunately, while we may have identified bike lanes in our active transportation plan as a desire for the arterial, we have no jurisdiction to put them on that road. And ultimately, it would require lobbying from the town and cycling groups to the province to incorporate it into that particular street, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Worship. Through to the Director of Engineering, a question. Year 2024 recognizes that that we might want to do some asphalt paving there if there's any water extensions put in that particular area. Does that restrict us to any future expansions of the water system to 2024?
And basically, when it comes to DTI, the only plan that they, quite frankly, look at is the one in front of them. So the 22 is what they look at, but 23, 24, 25, 26 essentially are placeholders that if for whatever reason, say if we accelerate our water infrastructure and we bring water main on the Hampton Road and we do it in 2023, we can, in 2022, we would make 23 our priority and bring that water main infrastructure ahead and bring our request ahead. So basically what we've done now is with a 5-year plan, the designated highway program is our set streets in the town. The Hampton Road, the Palmer Brook Road really are the only streets that fall into that program now for the town of Quispamsis. And you can only pave them so many times in 5 years, and then after a while, if you'll recall, the last few years, we've had no Hampton Road priorities. So what we do is we best project when we think water will show up on the main road, and then identify that for a priority. But we can adjust the future years in accordance with our own asset management from water main construction, as was mentioned a little earlier. If we want to look at road widening, things of that nature for active transportation, they'll consider that the year previous to our request. If we want to accelerate it, and I think it's covered in their cover letter from the last council meeting, we can actually contribute to the program, and then that helps them bring it a little further. So if we see a priority that we really want to, so to speak, put our money where our mouth is, and put money in and cost share the program, it will help them and make it easier for them to decide, yes, we think we'll do that part of the roadway first. From our perspective, at this stage of the game, with the water main planning where it sits so far out, we felt it was in our best interest to make sure that we had our ducks in a row for water main, the phasing of that, and then when we can incorporate that into the plan, then we get a cost share from the province. So that way we're putting in a water main, they're paying for the paving of the road. If we were doing it ourselves, we would have to pay for the water main and the paving both. By waiting a little bit, they pay for the asphalt. So it's a little bit of planning on that side of things, Your Worship.
All right. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried, 7-0. Item 8D, May 18th, 21. Ratification of email poll, award of tender 2021 TQ03-19, street upgrading 2021. May I have a motion, please? Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Worship. I would move that council ratify the email poll conducted May 20th, 2021, authorizing the award of tender number 2021 TQ03-10, street upgrading 2021 to the lower bidder, NRB Construction Company Limited, for the bid price of $1,919,374.26, exclusive of HST. Council also approves the addition of extra project limits on Hampton River Road, Bradley Lake Road, and the addition of a portion of Model Farm Road for an adjusted tender estimate of $2,592,967, exclusive of HST. And further, council approved relocation of remaining street capital portion of the budget to the following: $40,000 required geotechnical engineering 2021 street capital program, and $20,000 completion of the municipal subdivision specifications document, and $370,503 for unexpended budget remaining Brook Street storm sewer and road resurfacing.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. And may I have a seconder? Councillor Miller. Moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Miller. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried, 7-0. Item number 9, correspondence. First part of that, correspondence from Councillor Mike Bigger, Indigenous Land Use Acknowledgement. Councillor Bigger.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was so appreciative of you taking the time and having the sensitivity to call for a moment of silence at the onset of the meeting, as we're all struggling, I'm sure, people everywhere struggling across the country to process the terrible, horrific news we've been learning as of late. So I'm appreciative of that effort that you've made. And in similar fashion, I guess there is a lot of effort being made in municipalities across the country to apply special notice or attention to the importance of the unceded territories on which of First Nations peoples, on which we live, work, and play, frankly. And as a member of the arts community, it's virtually standard protocol at festivals and in theater shows and so on that a land acknowledgement is offered on behalf of the venue owner or the festival organizer, what have you. And it's only timely, I think, that we would come to this in our council, in our town. And so I have made a proposal that and I would make a motion really, that we research through staff, and we dispatch staff to kind of discover best practices and the proper process for instituting at the beginning of each of our council meetings, perhaps alongside the moment of reflection, a First Nations land acknowledgement that would extend sensitivity, respect, courtity, and tribute to the First Nations.
Would you like to read your motion?
Oh, yes, of course, yeah. I'm pontificating. Sorry about that, yeah. My father used to say he misses more good opportunities to keep his mouth shut than anyone I know. My proposal is to institute an acknowledgement of the town of Quispamsis operating on unceded First Nations territories as a regular part of the public council meeting, to be referred to staff to investigate the appropriate language that could be incorporated into the moment of reflection for council's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Councillor Schreier, you're seconding the motion?
Second the motion.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Bigger, seconded by Deputy Mayor Schreier. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Item 9B, correspondence from Councillor Bigger, request for installation of rainbow crosswalk on Randy Jones Way at the Qplex. Councillor Bigger, would you like to read your motion?
Thank you, Your Worship. Let's see if I've learned my lesson. The hits keep on coming here. My motion is that council authorize the development of a permanent rainbow crosswalk on Randy Jones Way at the Qplex on or before June 25, 2021, in recognition of June being celebrated as Pride Month internationally, and to express support, inclusion, and equality for members of the LGBTQ plus community here in Quispamsis.
Thank you. And my seconder is Councillor Donovan. Moved by Councillor Bigger, seconded by Councillor Donovan. On the question, Councillor Thompson.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. I just on the question, and this would be directed to the Director of Engineering and Works. The date of June 25th is a week away, 2 weeks away, I guess, or a week and a half. I'm just curious how long it would take to get the paint.
Your Worship, the paint is in stock. We ordered it last week. It can be installed subject to council's motion. So it's the first sunny day that we have temperature, the sidewalk will be installed, Your Worship. From a practical sense, at this stage, we have the traditional rainbow crosswalk, the Roy G. Biv colors. We didn't have the ability to get the additional triangles, but we'll start with the rainbow crosswalk at this stage, Your Worship.
Thank you. On the question, please vote now. Thank you. Motion carried 7-0. Item 9C, correspondence from Councillor Noah Donovan, acknowledging Pride Month. Councillor Donovan, would you like to read your correspondence? Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mayor O'Hara and Council, I believe it is important to acknowledge that Pride Month is upon us once again. This June, LGBTQ plus communities across our country and the world will celebrate and raise awareness in hopes of furthering equality and reducing both the discrimination and prejudice that unfortunately still exists in society today. I'll personally always strive to promote inclusivity and diversity in our community and will work towards ensuring Quispamsis remains a safe and positive place for all of us to live and grow together. It is my hope that our residents would do the same. Everyone deserves to be treated equally, regardless of who they are or who they love. And finally, my message to LGBTQ plus members of this community and beyond is very simple. Be proud of who you are with no apologies and just live your life authentically for yourself and not for anybody else. Thank you and happy Pride.
Thank you, Councillor Donovan. Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to move that Councillor Donovan be thanked for his correspondence, acknowledging, as per item 9B, the town plans to establish a rainbow crosswalk at the Q-Plex this month in time for Pride Month, and his letter be received and filed.
Thank you, Councillor Luck. Moved by Councillor Luck and seconded by Councillor Schreier. Sorry, Deputy Mayor Schreier. I'll get it right. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried, 7-0. Item 9D, correspondence from Councillor Carrie Luck, enhancing communication in council chambers, seating arrangement. Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I've had the privilege to sit here for just a few meetings, and based on my learning and communication style and needs, I'm finding it very challenging to effectively participate fully when I cannot see all the people I'm communicating with. To summarize my agenda submission, the importance of body language for effective communication and teamwork cannot be denied. Nonverbal communication also helps maintain and support motivation and enhances concentration. In light of this, and as we head into a new council term that I'm sure will be filled with robust discussions, I would like council to discuss the best setup to support effective communication. Currently, when seated at the council table, many councillors are unable to see half the council members who are speaking. A simple solution may be to spread the council chairs out, to have the councillors sit further out on the horseshoe to allow everyone to see each other. To generate some discussion on this topic, Your Worship, I would like to make the motion that Council address the limitations of the current seating arrangement to foster a more equitable and supportive environment for council communication.
Moved by Councillor Luck, seconded by Councillor Donovan. On the question, Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship. I thought about this quite a bit because actually I used to sit where Councillor Luck is, and now I sit over here. I see the pros and cons to both, and to be frank, so if I'm sitting over there, generally, yes, we have 5 to 6 people here, but when we have 15 to 20 people and somebody's speaking at the podium, it's much nicer sitting there looking out, and it's much easier for them to look at us when they're speaking. I find it difficult. I mean, I can see our director of recreation, and even when I was sitting there, I could kind of see everybody, and so I am okay with sitting there, but I do know people like verbal cues. So if somebody wanted to sit here, like here, I can see everybody better for sure. But I can see people when I was sitting there, I could see them as well. Maybe I'm just a bit taller as well. That makes a difference. But I think being where we are for the cameras and for the public, it's easier to do the presentations. I find it more difficult. I know we're going to be putting a screen over there too, but we can't put it at the door. It'll be over there somewhere. But you know, I can't, I'm okay either way, but I find it difficult if you have people out in the audience, because we would be all 3 lined up, so people looking in, that's my only thing, and also the verbal, I understand that as well, but generally we get to speak once or twice, and then the hand goes up, so unless we're in budget, when it's committee of the whole and budget, then it's more of a, I won't say a free-for-all, but it's that, so I'm okay with, I guess I'm okay with sitting anywhere, but I'm okay if somebody wants here because you can. I'm the only one that's on the side. I can see everybody better. I just have a harder time going this way. So if anybody wanted to sit here, I'm okay with trade.
Next in queue, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I know as Councillor Miller has already stated, the design aspect was designed for the public to be able to see all of us. And obviously, hopefully soon, we won't have to wear these. We'll actually be able to see each other, and we won't have to go through these. So right now is, prior to all of this being implemented, there was no issue with vision or being able to see people when they're talking or anything, because it's just, I can see either way very clearly. Maybe I'm a little bit taller, but I can see very clearly. So hopefully in time, even if we don't have to wear the mask, we'll be able to actually see each other talking. So it's sort of ahead of the game, I guess, now to even sort of discuss moving any of the chairs. And the other thing is that we just spent a huge amount of money on this new system. So moving anything would require moving all of the wiring and everything else with it. So it would be a huge budget item to even move these. I don't even think they will move. They're kind of all anchored together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to thank Councillor Miller for agreeing to maybe switch with me. Another solution might be, and again, I know that historically the mayor's seat is elevated. And I think that might also be one of the challenges, is that unfortunately it being elevated.
I am the shortest here.
It does take, so again, I'm happy to wait a little bit and see maybe once the screens come down and perhaps we can table it, but I would like to, I guess, have the option of perhaps revisiting it maybe once the screens do come down and the masks come off, because it is still a challenge to see the deputy mayor over there. But I think it's because of the position, and I think Councillor Miller brought up some really good points. So again, I'm not sure what the solution is, but there are some, I think, again, I think it's important that we see each other, especially council members, as we're, getting into some of the discussions that you mentioned. And again, after hopefully COVID is over, in some of our discussions, perhaps we'll be in the boardroom, so it might be a little bit easier as well. So,
thank you, Councillor Luck. Councillor Olsen, were you going to comment? Your light was on. There you go.
Thank you, Worship. I'm quite happy with the present setup. I know, as Councillor Thompson's alluded to, our first priority is to address the general public. And I think this is the best type of presentation that we can provide. And if a member of council would like to trade seats with another member of council that feels that they might have a better view from that particular seat, I've no problems with that. But I think associated with the large amount of money that was spent on the electronic upgrading that we're now using, I don't see us moving those connections anywhere for other councillors to be moved. So I'd support staying as it is and moving someone who wants to trade with another councillor in the present situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Olsen. Councillor Donovan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to make a motion, if possible. My motion would be that I'd move that council revisit this in the future.
Excuse me, Councillor Donovan, that was already moved, was it not?
There's a motion on the table for discussion. Okay, so I can't hear.
Okay. Councillor Donovan, could you please speak a little louder or closer to the microphone? It's very difficult to hear over here.
Yep. Just tell me when you're ready. Am I okay? I'd move that council revisit this issue in the future to see if it is cleared up. I don't think we need to make any decisions right now. To defer and review this in the future, not right now. Yeah. This situation in the future, yes.
Deputy Mayor Schreier, seconded. Moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Deputy Mayor Schreier. On the question, all those in, please vote now. Okay. Motion carried, 6-1. Oh, and sorry, yes, and there was one nay. That was Councillor Olson. Thank you. Item 9E, proposed 2022 budget schedule, staff report from town treasurer. Do we have anyone that's going to give us that this evening? Okay. Just check your calendars, please, or the information that was sent out to ensure that those dates don't conflict with anything else on your calendar, and I think we'll be good to go. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I'd move that the draft 2022 budget schedule be approved as prepared.
Moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question, Deputy Mayor Schreier?
Yes, what is the final date that the province, the deadline for our budget to be submitted to the province?
It's about November 17th, I believe.
November 17th?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
In case you're wondering, it is earlier than what it previously was set. So it used to be, I think, December 15th, something like that. And last year was the first year that we had it in early, that they requested it earlier. Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. In the background document that was submitted, Ms. Brandon had commented that she was suggesting a special meeting on Friday, November the 12th, but that's not in the actual table that we're approving. I didn't see that date there. I saw the other dates, but I just didn't know if that was an oversight.
Kathy, any comment?
Does anyone else see it there? Maybe it's me.
So your question, Councillor Luck, again?
Well, just a second, I'll have to go back.
Or your comment?
So yeah, so in her staff report, she had suggested that we would need to have a special meeting on Friday, November the 12th. But I don't recall. Yeah, I didn't recall seeing it in the table that she was submitting with all the dates. So I didn't know if that was just an omission or if she wanted to get our approval before we added it, but it's not showing up on the table.
Kathy, Madam Clerk, do you know anything about that?
I would have to look for clarification.
I don't know, did I read that that might have been an option if we needed to have it in earlier?
If it was not,
Okay.
So the submission is on the 17th, but I think if we wanted to submit it on the 15th, which was requested by the government, that we would have to have a meeting earlier. I thought I read that somewhere.
It's just missing from the schedule.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mr. Kennedy?
Your Worship, my understanding from the treasurer was the deadline is the 16th or 17th. And if we wanted to be in on that actual day, we'd have to have the special meeting on the Friday because our regular meeting would be on the 16th. But I know the treasurer did mention that the province isn't really going to hold a gun to our head to have it in on that particular date, that most municipalities have a couple of days grace period. So as long as council was comfortable with approving the budget on the 16th and submitting it on the 17th, which is right up against the deadline, maybe a day or two late, If council wasn't comfortable with that and wanted to ensure that they met that, it's not really a hard deadline, but the quote-unquote deadline, then there would have to be a meeting on the 12th in advance of our regularly scheduled council meeting on the 16th.
Okay. Councillor Luck?
So in light of that, should we have it tentative? I guess if we get closer to that date and we decide we do need more time, I wouldn't want people to say, well, sorry, I'm already booked. Like, I don't know if it should be added as a kind of placeholder.
Your worship, the council wants to approve these dates, and we can send them out on your calendars and get clarification from the treasurer for the July meeting.
Again, I think it was an option. Councillor Thompson?
Yes, Your Worship. I also note on the schedule there isn't the Saturday on here.
October 23rd, 8:30 till 4.
Oh, it's down there.
All right? Okay. All right. Did we have the motion on that?
Yes, Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor Thompson.
So moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor Thompson on the question. Please vote now. Motion carried, 7-0. Thank you. Number 10 is bylaws, and there are none. Oh, oh, it didn't come out on mine. Okay. Sorry. Right. Bylaws 10A, proposed local improvement bylaw number 011-2021. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, Your Worship. I would move first reading to proposed local improvement bylaw number 011-2021.
Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question. Do we read that now, Councillor? Councillor Thompson? Would you like to read that bylaw? Oh, no, not yet? Okay.
Question.
On the question, Councillor Olson.
No, I just, for the
Okay.
vote.
On the question. Please vote now. Motion carried, 7-0. Thank you. New business. Oh, second reading, right. Councillor Olson?
Yes, Your Worship, I would move second reading be given to proposed local improvement bylaw number 011-2021.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Miller. On the question. Please vote now. Motion carried, 7-0. Thank you. Just those two. Number 11, new business. A, IT policies, staff report from IT and Administrative Services Coordinator, Sherry Levesque, in attendance. Welcome, Ms. Levesque.
Excuse me. Good evening, Your Worship and council members. An IT security policy review was completed as part of an external cyber risk management assessment conducted in 2020 to determine the town's cyber resiliency. Inappropriate use can expose the town of Quispamsis to cybersecurity risks, compromise of information technology and operational technology systems, data leaks, impacts to municipal services, and legal issues. Strong and clear policies can help mitigate potential damage resulting from policy violations. The town of Quispamsis has updated the following policies, some as a result of the assessment recommendations, to align with current standards and practices as it relates to information and communications technology and cybersecurity. Some of those policies include the IT acceptable use policy, the mobile device policy, the remote access policy, and the council members' communications technology policy. This evening, I have also invited Doug Jenkins from iSpire, who is our managed IT services provider, to also assist and answer any questions that you may have that I'm unable to answer.
Thank you. Are there questions for either Ms. Levesque or our iSpire rep? No? Pardon me? So go through each one? Okay. Sorry. So we have item number 1, the information technology acceptable use number 069 policy. Councillor Thompson.
I actually just have a question to
Okay.
to Sherry. All of these policies are really just housekeeping. It's keeping the names current.
I'm sorry?
I said all of these, the mobile device policy and the remote access policy, we have those policies already in place. They're just different names for them. Or
No,
are they
actually,
a complete change?
we've actually made some changes to the policies, and as part of the recommendations is to rescind some of the older policies.
Okay.
They are updated, but some of them have been revised to be more inclusive.
Okay. Thank you.
So are there any outstanding impacts that council should be aware of, particularly returning councillors? Is there anything that has changed dramatically?
In terms of the policies themselves, there have been some changes. Certainly, we have changed one of the policies, which was previously the internet and network acceptable use policy, and we have made that change to be the IT acceptable use policy so that we can expand so that it encompassed much more inclusive of our IT as well as our operational technologies, so that it wasn't just limited to the internet as well as just the network access. That's one of the areas. Another change that we made that was under the communications, I believe it's policy 072 if I'm correct, which was the council members' communications technology policy. There was a financial implication related to that. Previously, there was $150 that was considered to be the reimbursement to council members. That was further reduced to $65 because it did not reflect the current contract arrangements that we had. And at the time when we had that policy in place, that was in reference to that it also covered the council members' home internet as well, inclusive. So we felt that we needed to realign that to better reflect what our current amount that we would subsidize for the purpose of providing town devices.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to point out, if it would assist any of the councillors, is that at the bottom of each policy, there's a nice revision history chart that actually gives a summary of the changes. So if they're looking for kind of what changed, it is at the bottom of each policy. So it's very helpful, so thank you.
All right. There's a motion to be made. Councillor Donovan.
I was going to read the motion, Your Worship. I motion that council adopt information technology acceptable use policy number 069 and rescind policy number 035 network internet acceptable use policy.
On the question, please vote now. Motion carried, 7-0. The mobile device policy, 070. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move that council adopt the mobile device policy number 070 and rescind the handheld operated electronics device policy number 034.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor Luck. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried, 7-0. Thank you. Remote access policy, number 071. Moved by Councillor Carrie Luck. Please read the motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council adopt remote access policy number 071 and rescind remote access policy number 046.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Thompson. Moved by Councillor Luck, seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried, 7-0. Item 11.4. Council members' communications technology policy number 072. Councillor Donovan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd move that council adopt communications technology policy number 072 and rescind council members' communication policy number 039.
Moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question, seeing there are none, please vote now. Motion carried, 7-0. 11B, municipal election campaign issues. Each council member to bring forth 2 items. Please be aware that if you've heard your item already, and I will go around the table, starting with Councillor Miller. If you have 2 items, you can express those, and we will forward those on for staff for review. So just 2 items, and anything further, if you've got 6 items, you can always write those in at another time. So Councillor Miller, if you wouldn't mind starting.
Thank you, Your Worship. My 2 aren't new to the group that's here, or probably not, is more sidewalks and walkability to the schools and for safety within walking distance of the schools, and our ongoing question on speeding and whether it's how to slow it down. So those are my 2 that keep coming up.
Thank you. Councillor Bigger.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have anything particularly to add at this point on this. I have had people, a couple of people had spoken to me about the ongoing deer issue, but we've been managing that in the last council, and I know that will, be with us going forward. And I also heard about more sidewalks, certainly. And then the unsightly premises issue that we dealt with earlier was one of the key things that had come up to me in the campaign. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention active transportation, so I'll mention that now. And specifically, actually, the Ganole Point Road, just recently someone did share concern around just the safety of it because it's been patched so many times. It's becoming quite treacherous to even bike on. So again, that would be kind of in that vein of active transportation. And the other thing is town communication, just the need for better communication on decisions and the rationale behind them.
Okay. Were you able to get those, Kathy? Okay. Councillor Olson.
Just without repeating some that have already been said, sidewalks, speed bumps, and paving.
Pavement. Pavement. Deputy Mayor Schreier.
Thank you, Your Worship. I won't repeat anything I heard from the other councillors, but what to add to it, I've had questions about our fiscal policy, wanting to make sure with the recent housing market in such a surge, that we give consideration when we're preparing our budget of what the assessments will look like in the next, for the next current year. And also respecting our environment when we're looking at development within the town. Most people agree that we continue to develop and that people want to live here. Of course, we are considered one of the top places in Atlantic Canada to live. People want to move here and enjoy our natural environment. So I've had people express that let's do development, but let's respect our environment at the same time. And again, respecting our environment in a safe manner, that people are able to use active transportation. So safety came up numerous times in our community. Thank you, Your Worship. Comments were made to me regarding the strong housing market that we're currently seeing in the Greater St. John or New Brunswick in general, and that what that will do to assessments in our riding, and how those assessments will affect our tax base. And they want to make sure that we're prudent with our money that we may see as a result of increased assessments. So that could be conversations that we need to have with the province as well.
You okay? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Thompson.
I don't really have anything to add. I've heard it all around here, so I don't have anything really to add.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Donovan.
Thank you, Your Worship. During my campaign, I had the privilege of talking to, a lot of our younger population in this community, and something.
Sorry, you had the privilege of speaking to whom?
Some of our younger population
Okay,
in this
thank you.
community. Sorry, my mask is a little troubling. And some of the things they brought up were, enhancements to current leisure infrastructure, as well as the development of new, leisure infrastructures. So such as, upgrading the skateboard park, basketball courts, as well as, potentially adding a splash pad in the future. So, adding to that, a lot of the emails I received were, along those lines, and trying to, figure out ways that this council can work with the younger population in our community to figure out ways that we can work together to better the community, I guess. I don't know really how to say that, but that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Councillor Donovan. Are you okay with that?
Worship, I can just draft this list, send it out to you all, and you can make any corrections if I don't have it quite, okay?
Item C, Town Committee Appointments, Recommendations from Nominating Committee. There's a motion here. Oh. Okay, so we have a motion, first of all, for, thank you, Councillor Donovan, for 11B. Deputy Mayor Schreier, would you like to read the motion for
Yes.
11B?
Certainly, Your Worship. On B, okay, the municipal elections campaign issues be noted and referred to the appropriate staff departments to provide background information and recommendations to council for the July 20th, 2021 regular meeting.
It was moved by Deputy Mayor Schreier and seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried, 7-0. Thank you. Item 11C, town committee appointments, recommendations from nominating committee. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move the council endorse the nominating committee's recommendations effective June 15, 2021, as proposed for committee appointments, reappointments, and associated terms, including the disbandment of the Personnel Committee.
Moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Deputy Mayor Schreier. On the question, please vote now. Oh, sorry.
No.
Well, I had my button pushed. I was just curious why the Personnel Committee was being disbanded.
We have an HR department.
Okay, that's,
Yep.
okay, thank you.
All right, sorry about that. Councillor Luck. Motion carried 7-0. Item D, Local Improvements 2021, RFP 2021 TQ06-16, staff recommendations. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, Your Worship. I move that the town award the local improvements 2021 TQ05-16 to the low bidder, Steel Trucking Limited, for the bid price of $25,137.50 plus HST.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Schreier. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Thank you. Item E, General Capital Fleet Replacement Schedule Adjustment, Wheeled Excavator. Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move that staff proceed with the tender for a wheeled excavator using the revised specifications and an adjusted general capital fleet replacement schedule for 2021 as proposed.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Schreier. On the question, seeing there's none, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Item F, 2021 Drainage Improvement Projects, Tender 2021 TQ 05-23, staff recommendation. Deputy Mayor Schreier.
Yes, Your Worship, the town award, put a motion forward, the town awards the drainage improvement tender 2021 TQ05-23 to the low bidder, Steel Trucking Limited, for the bid price of $47,135.40 plus HST.
Thank you. Moved by Deputy Mayor Schreier. Could I have a seconder, please? Seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Thank you. Item G, RFP 2021 TQ 05-22, Transportation Master Plan, recommendation for consulting engineering services. Councillor Bigger.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move that, make a motion that council award RFP number 2021 TQ 05-22 Engineering Services, Development of Transportation Master Plan to Englobe Corp., and that they proceed with Part A for an upset fee identified as $26,370 plus HST.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Moved by Councillor Bigger, seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Thank you. Item H, Aucoin subdivision, 28 Nightingale Lane. Council assent for land for public purposes. PID 30004048. Moved by Deputy Mayor Schreier.
That council grant assent to the Acon subdivision plan and approve the allocation of $1,500 plus HST from the Land Trust Reserve Fund to acquire the additional LP land for public purposes.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Schreier, seconded by Councillor Luck. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Thank you. Item I, Fernwood subdivision, Phase 4B. Council assent. PID 30338925. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council grant assent to the Fernwood Park subdivision Phase 4B final plan, subject to the execution of a standard subdivision development agreement with the town, so the plan can be stamped and signed by the town clerk and development officer for registration in the provincial and registration system.
Moved by Councillor Miller, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Donovan. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Item J, Fernwood Park subdivision, Phase 5A. Council assent, PID 30327258. Moved by Councillor Noah Donovan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd move that council grant assent to the Fernwood Park subdivision Phase 5A final plan, subject to the execution of a standard subdivision development agreement with the town, so that the plan can be stamped and signed by the town clerk and development officer for registration in the provincial land registration system.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Deputy Mayor Schreier. On the question, Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is directed to the Director of Engineering and Works. I'm not sure if this is the same development. I mean, right now what we're approving is kind of on the backside of Meadow Lark Drive, but I did notice that off of that street, there is more development happening, and they've literally gone in and just cut everything. And I'm just wondering if there's a process in place to prevent that from happening. I'm assuming that's not what we're hoping for in terms of development. So I'm just wondering if the director could speak to that. Thank you.
Your Worship, that's correct. That is in accordance with our subdivision, our municipal plan, our subdivision bylaw. That is not the appropriate measures that we'd like to see a developer take. I think one of the councillors this evening identified responsible development of subdivision and respecting the environment, and that's one of the goals that we try to undertake. In this particular situation, it has been brought to the attention of the Department of the Environment. They're investigating it and are taking the appropriate actions at this stage of the game. It is outside of our particular jurisdiction because they're dealing with a wetland and a watercourse alteration issue, which has the higher jurisdiction. So we're really at this point waiting to see what corrective actions they are requiring, what enforcement actions they will be undertaking over the next little while. Then we will be able to work at that particular subdivision as we go forward. So when it comes to council, we'll be keeping you apprised of the steps that have been taken to date. The subdivisions that you've seen before you this evening are outside of those boundaries and have had different standards applied to them, but you are correct, that is not a standard of development that we wish to see in the community, and we're hoping that the appropriate actions the province will take will help us to rectify that in the future.
Thank you. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Item K, Highlands of Queensbury Subdivision Phase 5, Stage 2. Council Assent, PID 248534. Moved by Deputy Mayor Schreier.
The council grant assent to the Highlands of Queensberry subdivision Phase 5, Stage 2 final plan, subject to the execution of the standard subdivision development agreement with the town, so that the plan can be stamped and signed by the town clerk and development officer for registration in the provincial land registration system, excuse me.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Schreier, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question. Seeing there are none, please vote now. Motion carried, 7-0. And finally, item L, Woodley Park subdivision, Phase 28B, Council Assent. I don't know. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move that council grant assent to the Woodley Park subdivision Phase 28B, subject to the execution of a standard subdivision development agreement, so the plan can be stamped and signed by the town clerk and development officer for registration in the provincial land and registration system.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Deputy Mayor Schreier. On the question. Seeing there are none, please vote now. Motion carried, 7-0. Item 12, reports. Any comments on any of the reports? Deputy Mayor Schreier.
Yes, Your Worship, I just wanted to bring attention to the Green Paper virtual sessions. I did register today. I believe there's one next week. I can't remember the date
23rd,
now.
I think,
Yeah.
Wednesday.
So I'm just wondering on the Green Paper, they're having virtual discussions. Is there an opportunity for us as a council to have a discussion on the Green Paper?
That would probably be a special meeting and something that we could certainly call. It would be an open meeting, I believe, Madam Clerk? It would be an open meeting, so we could certainly call a discussion on the Green Paper. So if that's something that you want to move, we would have to coordinate the dates.
I would like to move that we do have a special paper on the Green Paper to have a frank discussion with council, seeing that we're reduced number of sittings in the summer months coming ahead, that maybe we can book it in the quite not so near future, so that everybody has a chance to, maybe after the virtual discussion of next week, once we've all had an opportunity to listen to that or engage in that, that we could have a special meeting after that. And I would leave it up to the clerk to decide when that meeting would be, take a poll of council as to their ability to attend.
Okay, so it's been moved by Deputy Mayor Schreier that we call a special meeting, and we will leave that for the clerk to poll councillors. So I'm going to take next in queue for the seconder on that motion. And that would be Councillor Miller. So moved by Deputy Mayor Schreier and seconded by Councillor Miller. On the question, Councillor Olson.
Just on the question, Your Worship, that's a series of virtual sessions. I think there's 3 of them that I signed up for, and they're all to do with different subjects. So I don't know whether we, I don't know if it's being suggested that we wait until after all of these sessions are done, or whether we try and prepare ourselves to the actual virtual sessions that are going to.
I won't speak on behalf of Deputy Mayor Schreier, but my understanding was that she would like our council to have a discussion on the Green Paper. Is that clear? Yeah, just to discuss the Green Paper itself and for us to take a position on it. Thank you. We have a motion on the table. It was moved by seconded by Councillor Miller, moved by Deputy Mayor Schreier. On the question? I'll take next in queue. Councillor Locke first, and then Councillor Thompson.
So I'm happy to hear the motion that was put forth by Deputy Mayor Schreier. Because actually, I wasn't aware that there was 3. I thought there was only 1, and it's on the 23rd, but it also conflicts with the police board. And now that I've been approved tonight by that, I will have a conflict. So I actually look forward to hearing, what other councillors think. But, so anyway, I'll have to explore, because I thought I only signed up for 1. I didn't realize there was multiple.
I don't have the dates for only the 23rd.
Third.
And there's one Saturday morning as well. I believe there's another one, if I'm not
Now,
mistaken.
did we potentially get a different invite? Oh, that's actually the 19th is the orientation for like municipal orientation. That's not actually, I mean, I guess it's the intro to the green paper, but that's not actually the specific like 2-hour green paper discussion. Like the 2-hour green paper discussion happens on the 23rd at 4:30.
There's a difference, there's a municipal, or the provincial municipal orientation sessions. There's several of those, but the actual green paper, I will get some clarification, but the only date that I knew of, that there were previous ones in May, but the only upcoming one that I know about is this June 23rd. Councillor Thompson might know more by way of.
Councillor Thompson, have you any information from UMNB?
Yes, Your Worship. This is just sort of the, everything was lagged behind because of COVID. So what's happening right now are the various stakeholder meetings. And these meetings, as stakeholders, it's not just municipal councils, it's local service districts that are involved in these. I will say, it's not as easy to ask a question as one might think it would be. There's a large number of people that are involved, and once you actually put your application in to join one of these sessions, you have to receive an email confirming that you are on that list. But I will say, the previous ones that were held, there was a very large number of people. It's very difficult to get to actually ask a question. You can listen to a lot of other conversations, people asking questions, but it is very difficult, even if you attend 3 of them or 4 of them, it's still a very difficult process. There will be more because of the lag in time. The end of June, it was the target, and I believe now they're putting it into early July. So it's there will be quite a few more. But again, as Councillor Olson indicated, they're all different topics, and they're all aimed at different groups. It may be our municipality may be invited to one, along with 10 other municipalities and 4 to 10 local service districts. So it is a large group.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson, for that update. And we have a motion on the table regarding the green paper meeting, or did we vote on that? So the motion's still on the table? Okay, on the question, please vote now. That was under, this was Deputy Mayor's request for a special meeting. Are you? No, she's got it there. Were you able to vote?
I thought we took that part out about after the sessions.
After the, oh, so can we take out those first 4 words?
Yes.
or for 6 words, and just say special meeting. Request for a special meeting on the green paper?
Yes. You want after the virtual sessions removed?
Yes. Okay, so on the question, so the request, the motion by Deputy Mayor Schreier is to call a meeting on the green paper to coordinate dates and to provide an opportunity for council to discuss and take a position on the green paper. Does that meet with your approval, Deputy Mayor?
The only thing is, we might not take a position at that time. We might, it more just discuss, that we can have a discussion. Thank you.
Hi, George, I think we've got it. All right, so on the question. Thank you. Motion carried 7-0. Item D, I guess that's on reports. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I know our treasurer's in here and she talks about budget being the favorite time of the year, but I was quite excited to read the gas tax letter. I don't know if people noticed in the bottom, there was a paragraph that stated that there's going to be another one-time top-up equivalent to what we had last year. So I immediately sent a note to our treasurer this weekend and asked her if she knew any more, and she said, I only know what you know right now, that we are getting one that was stated in the letter, but she has no details. But I just want to bring that up, that we had a top-up last year, which helped immensely with the sewer down in Gondola Point Road area. But if the math is right, we could be getting another $1.25 million upcoming, which would be greatly appreciated. So that's a big hit. So just wanted to mention that. Again, in there it says it still needs to be confirmed from the federal government, but I was very pleased to see that addition in there. So helps our budgeting a little bit for 2022.
Thank you, Councillor Miller, for pointing that out. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, Your Worship, I would move that we receive and file the reports.
It's been moved by Councillor Thompson. It's been seconded by Councillor Olson that we move and file and receive reports. Please vote on the question. Please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Thank you. Item 13, business arising from the Committee of the Whole, Scholarship Committee recommendations. Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to move that the 2 Town of Quispamsis scholarships be awarded as recommended by the Scholarship Committee, with names of recipients being kept confidential until graduation ceremonies.
Moved by Councillor Luck, seconded by Councillor Donovan. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. That brings us to item number 14, adjournment of our very first meeting. Councillor Olson.
Yes, Your Worship, I would move adjournment.
Moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Schreier. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Have a good night, everyone. Drive safely. Hope you find some joy in your day tomorrow.